This meeting is being held in compliance with the Brown Act. SCAG offices are open for members of the public to attend and participate in person. Instructions for providing public comment have been provided in advance and are also included in the agenda packet. If a member of this body is attending remotely but is not at a location specified on the agenda, they may observe and comment as a member of the public, but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of this body. For all members participating remotely, please ensure your microphone is muted when not in use. Please state your name during deliberations and whether making a motion or offering a second. Any voting member or member of the public calling into this meeting by telephone can press *6 to mute and unmute. All telephone participants should identify themselves prior to speaking. SCAG encourages all members of the public to participate in its meetings. We are committed to holding meetings accessible to people with disabilities. For members of the public requiring ADA accommodation, please call 213-630-1410. SCAG offers free interpretation services for members of the public needing information in another language. Please call 213-236-1895.
All right, thank you. Well, good morning, everyone. Today is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and the time is 8:32 according to my clock. So the meeting of the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee is now called to order. Before we get started, I wanted to congratulate Councilwoman Cindy Allen on her ascension as SCAG president. And on that note, I also wanted to thank President Allen for reappointing me as chair of the LCMC. I think we have a great group here, and I just so appreciate it, Chair Allen or President Allen. It's an honor. So thank you so much, and it helps with lots of things, I think. So I had a great time seeing everyone at the General Assembly a few weeks ago, and I'm looking forward to serving as chair for another year. So thanks again for placing your trust in me. I also wanted to take a moment just to welcome and congratulate those of you who were reappointed to the committee. I hope you're excited for the year ahead. We had a busy legislative year this last year. I don't think it's going to change coming up. I think it's going to be the same. So I wanted to extend a special welcome and individually recognize our new committee members. So we have a few new faces. Mayor Fred Young from the city of Fullerton is here. Mayor Ulysses Cabrera from the city of Moreno Valley, and Councilwoman Dr. Suli Sarro from our president's very own city of Long Beach. So lastly, I want to recognize and thank Councilmember Keith Ike from the city of La Cañada Flint Ridge and Councilmember Clint Lorimore from the city of Eastvale for their service over the past few years as they transition off the committee. So with that, let's get on to our agenda. But first, a few housekeeping items. We just went over this, but just as a reminder, if you are not at the location that's specified in the agenda, you can observe and comment as a member of the public but may not participate in any member discussion or voting of the body. And just to let you know, my location is posted where I am now because I am not at my usual place. So, all right, with that, I am going to start us off with a Pledge of Allegiance, and I would please ask if Wendy Bucknam, if you could please lead us in the pledge.
Absolutely. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Let's see. Oh, I will ask our clerk, please. Do we have a quorum today? Can we get started?
Good morning, Madam Chair. Yes, I am confirming that we have met quorum.
Perfect. Thank you. We're at our public comment period, so I will open general public comment for the meeting, and this is the time for members of the public to offer comment on matters that are within SCAG's jurisdiction but are not listed on the agenda. Staff, have we received any written public comments?
Madam Chair, we did not receive any public comments before or after the 5 p.m. deadline.
Thank you. And do we have any members of the public who wish to speak either in person or remote?
Madam Chair, there are no members of the public with raised hands on Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, thank you. So we'll close public comment period and move on. Anybody want to do any kind of reprioritizing of agenda items? I don't think so, so we'll just move on. All right, consent calendar. We'll open public comment for consent calendar. And let me ask Emma if we have anybody who wishes to speak to consent calendar.
Madam Chair, I see no raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Perfect. I think to save time, if anyone wants to pull anything from the consent calendar, we have staff present before moving to the roll call vote. Does anybody want to pull anything? I have Jenny Crosswhite with
I don't
her
want
hand
to
raised.
pull it. I just had a question. The minutes are from April 15th, which would have been before the most recent SCAG election. And they list now Vice President Marquez as Vice President Marquez, but he would have still been second Vice President. So I didn't know if in these minutes it should reflect him. There's a couple of different times he's mentioned as Vice President, but in April he would have still been second. So I just wasn't sure. And so it's not a substantive thing. So you all can figure out if that needs to be changed. But I just wanted to mention that because technically, as of that meeting, the now Vice President would have been second.
Noted. We will note that in the minutes. Thank you, Jenny. All right, so let's go ahead. Excuse me. If no one wants to pull any agenda items, let's just go ahead and entertain a motion to approve then.
Shapiro move the item.
Bucknam, second.
Okay, and I don't know if I did this, but we'll close public comment on this item. So, all right, so we have a motion and a second. I'll ask Emma if you would please do a roll call vote.
Cindy Allen,
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam,
Aye.
Ulysses Cabrera,
Abstain.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay, Margaret Finlay, Kurt Hagman,
Hagman, aye.
Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Mark Henderson,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Fred Jung.
Yeah, everywhere.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, Fred Jung?
Fred Jung abstain.
Thank you. Patricia Locke Dawson,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Gil Rebelar, Gil Rebelar,
Yes.
thank you. Suli Saro, Suli Saro,
Abstain. Sorry, the button was not.
noted, thank you. David Shapiro,
Yes.
Donald Wagner, Alan Wapner,
Yes.
thank you. Thomas Wong,
She was there. Someone's on you.
Thomas Wong,
Yeah.
thank you. Madam Chair, with 13 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 3 abstentions, the committee has approved the consent calendar.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. We're going to move on to the action items on our agenda. And today we have, we're going to talk about our housing bills. And what I want to do is, this is item 3. So our May 2025 housing bills. We're going to open the public comment on this item. Let's see if anybody wishes to speak.
Madam Chair, I do not see any raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Okay, great. We'll close public comment then. Thanks. I'm going to go ahead and call on Francisco Barajas, our Senior Legislative Affairs Analyst. And I think what we're going to do, Francisco, is this correct? We're going to try to hear all the housing bills first, and then we'll take comment and discuss in a vote, correct?
Correct. Yes. With your permission, Madam Chair, our recommendation would be to hear the first four bills together as are all interconnected, and then we could have
Okay.
discussion on those, and then we could go bill by bill after that, since they're a little more different in that regard.
Great. Let's do that then. Thanks.
All right, excellent. Thank you so much. Well, good morning, Chair and committee members. I hope you all had an amazing Mother's Day weekend. Our gift to you was this LCMC agenda. As discussed, we'll go through the first four bills and then we could have discussion on those. So let's go to the first slide, please. Great. So to start, we have AB 736 by Assemblymember Buffy Wicks and SB 417 by Senator Chris Cabaldon, together known as the Affordable Housing Bond Act of 2026. As noted in the report, the legislation would place a bond measure on the June 2026 ballot, authorizing the California State Treasurer to issue $10 billion in general obligation bonds to provide funding for affordable housing. Funding would be distributed as follows, and as noted on the slide, $5 billion for the multifamily housing program, $1.7 billion specifically for supportive housing under the multifamily housing program, $800 million for the portfolio reinvestment program, $500 million for the acquisition and rehabilitation of unrestricted housing units, $1 billion for homeownership opportunities, including the CalHome program and the My Home Assistance program, $350 million for the Joe Cerna Junior Farm Worker Housing Grant Program, $250 million for the Tribal Housing Program, and last but not least, $400 million for the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program of 2019. If passed by voters in June 2026, the Bond Act would infuse as much as $2 billion annually over 5 years into these programs that were created for housing production and preservation. These are programs that would be administered competitively by the Department of Housing and Community Development, for which various entities could apply, which includes local public entities, for-profit and nonprofit corporations, limited equity housing cooperatives, and even individuals, depending on the program. Voters last approved a comprehensive state housing bond in 2018. Those funds have been fully allocated. Additionally, voters last approved a $6.4 billion mental health bond measure, of which $2 billion is dedicated to supporting supportive housing for veterans and other individuals living with disabilities. Legislators have also appropriated general fund revenue for housing production in recent years. However, the state's projected deficit makes significant additional general fund commitments to housing unlikely in the future, as they were not included in the governor's January budget when we had an expected slight surplus. SCAG's legislative platform supports legislation that would provide new incentives, tools, and ongoing funding, as well as expand housing programs that fund construction and development of housing and support housing supportive infrastructure, such as the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program, while preserving local authority to address housing production, affordability, and homelessness challenges. As the proposed Affordable Housing Bond Act meets these criteria, SCAG is recommending support. And then let's go to the next slide. So as mentioned earlier, in conjunction with the Affordable Housing Bond Act, the legislature introduced a series of bills aimed at making housing more affordable as they seek to cut red tape, provide more certainty to developers, and diminish the time it takes to get new housing approved and built. SB 607 by Senator Wiener seeks to enact 5 changes to the existing CEQA process as recommended by the Little Hoover Commission in their report released in May of 2024, which was titled CEQA Targeted Reforms for California's Core Environmental Law. As noted on this slide, this includes 1, focusing the scope of subsequent environmental review. So as noted in the report, under existing law, a project that narrowly misses qualifying for an existing CEQA exemption has to prepare a full environmental report. Under the provisions of SB 607, a project that only misses the ability to qualify for a statutory or categorical exemption by one single condition, as determined by the lead agency, would only have to evaluate that one condition that rendered the proposed project ineligible for the exemption, as opposed to the project in its entirety. As such, it would only have to include in its environmental impact report any discussion of alternatives, cumulative impacts, or growth-inducing impacts of the project. The hope in doing this is that the environmental review would be focused solely on environmental risks associated with the project. Number two, it would align standard of review between the negative declaration, mitigated negative declaration, and environmental impact report. As noted in the report, under existing law, the fair argument standard is applied under CEQA for the negative declaration and the mitigated negative declaration, which means that if there is substantial evidence supporting a fair argument that a project can have a significant environmental impact, the more expensive P607 eliminates the applicability of the fair argument standard and instead requires the lead agency to determine whether a project is more likely than not to have a significant effect on the environment based on substantial evidence in light of the entire record. Number three, it limits the scope of administrative records. SB 607 would limit the scope of administrative records to those documents that were relevant to the decision-making process, attempting to declutter the administrative record and ensure that internal agency communications that were never presented to, considered, or relied on by the decision-making body are excluded from the record. Four, clarifying existing urban infill exemptions. So under existing law, infill projects that are less than 5 acres in size that are substantially surrounded by urban uses and are consistent with the general plan and zoning designations can qualify for a Class 32 categorical exemption. However, the project in question has to be located within city limits because of how it's written. So SB 607 would clarify that this exemption can be used on infill projects on county lands as well. And finally, number five, exempting rezonings consistent with housing element. As a local government's housing element and or general plan has already undergone an extensive CEQA review, SB 607 would exempt rezonings that are consistent with an adopted and approved housing element. As noted in the report, this bill is co-sponsored by the Barrier Council, Housing Action Coalition, Prosperity California, and the Rural County Representatives of California, and has received support from such groups as Abundant Housing LA, the California Apartment Association, California Big City Mayors, CBIA, and CSAC. Conversely, it has gained opposition from environmental groups throughout the state, such as the California Preservation Foundation, Natural Resources Defense Council, the Planning and Conservation League, and Sierra Club of California, to name a few. As our state legislative platform supports CEQA reform to expedite and streamline project development and delivery, especially for infill housing projects, staff is recommending support for this bill. Next slide. So with AB 609, this bipartisan bill creates a CEQA exemption for housing projects that are compliant with local laws and are in environmentally friendly locations, reducing risk and increasing feasibility for these projects. As noted in the report, specific criteria includes that the project site cannot be more than 20 acres, the project site is either in an unincorporated town or city or within an urban area as defined by the U.S. Census Bureau. The site has previously been developed with an urban use, or at least 75% of the site's perimeter adjoins parcels developed with urban areas. The project is consistent with the applicable general plan, zoning ordinance, and any local coastal program, and the project is not located on environmentally sensitive or hazardous sites, such as wetlands or lands under conservation easements. As with the previous bill, a SCAG state legislative platform supports CEQA reform to expedite and streamline project development and delivery, including infill housing projects. Staff is recommending support. And then finally, the fourth bill that's tied with the housing bond, we have AB 1007, which is by Assemblymember Blanca Rubio. This bill seeks to expedite the timelines for approval or disapproval by a public agency acting as a responsible agency for residential and mixed-use development projects. A lead agency is the public agency that has the principal responsibility for carrying out or approving a project. In the case of housing, that would be the city or county. Conversely, a responsible agency is the public agency that has responsibility for carrying out or approving a project. This can include any public agency other than the lead agency with discretionary approval power over the project, typically in approving a permit. So this could include an air pollution control district, public or municipal utility, agencies that provide water sewage services, or state agencies such as the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. So to clarify, This applies only to the responsible agency, not the lead agency. As such, cities and counties, as the lead agency, would have the full amount of time under current law to complete their review processes. Rather, this applies to responsible agencies, those who review a project application after a lead agency has already approved an application. And specifically, it would limit the reviews from 90 days to 45 days. And housing projects that qualify would include residential units, mixed-use development, transitional supportive housing, or farm worker housing. Oh, and actually we have one more bill. Sorry, I misspoke. Last slide, I promise. AB 1276 by Assemblymember Juan Carrillo. This just seeks to extend existing requirements on cities and counties to state and regional agencies, helping ensure housing projects aren't subject to regulatory changes at the state and regional agency level, providing a level of certainty to developers. And with that, I would like to take a pause and answer any and all questions that the committee members might have.
Thanks, Francisco. Let's see if anybody has any questions about these. Did you want to take a vote on these before we move on to the other items, Francisco?
No, we could, I'll leave that up to the discretion of you, Chair.
Okay.
But we can
Okay.
certainly have the discussion on these bills.
Okay, I have a question from Wendy Bucknam, then Mark Henderson. Go ahead, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you, Francisco, for the addressing the concern I had on AB 1007, and we gave you a little heads up yesterday. So thank you
Yes.
for clarifying that, because that was freaking me out about the lead agency. So thank you for clarifying that. And then on 609, I'm trying to figure out what is the difference between this and 2011, and does it require affordable, or I like to call it workforce housing? And I do see that LMC member Thomas Wong is already on record as supporting this, so I'm wondering if he has any insights as well. So I'll let you start, Francisco.
Yes, thank you. So AB 2011 was also a bill by Assemblymember Wicks, which is the Affordable Housing and High Roads Job Act. That one was a lot more prescriptive. It allowed for ministerial by right approval for affordable housing on commercially zoned lands, and also
Okay.
allowed such approvals for mixed income housing along commercial corridors. So that was more prescriptive, and this applies to like all housing in general.
Okay.
That falls within the criteria.
And what about affordability?
It doesn't have affordability requirement on it. It just has to be infill development. So any kind of housing.
Curious. Okay. Thank you.
All right.
And
Is that it, Wendy?
Yep, that's
Okay.
it. Thank you.
All right. Let's go to Mark Henderson and then Jan Harnick.
All right, thank
Mark?
you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Francisco, for that presentation. My question is kind of centered around AB 736, and I want to thank our staff for kind of addressing me on some of those issues, but it still wasn't quite clear to me with the passage of a bond potentially, and that money goes to those buckets. Does it stay in those buckets? And it doesn't really share who would be the administrators of those funding and who determines if a project is valid or invalid for some of that funding. And is that even enough funding for all 54 or 58 counties in California to get the funding to promote projects in their community? That wasn't all the way made clear to me.
Yes. So as you said, this would go to the buckets that were prescribed, and those are competitive programs. And so any jurisdiction or nonprofit or for-profit could apply through those. So they're administered by HCD. So HCD would be the ones who would handle the processing of the applications and figuring out the who gets the awards and things like that.
Is there an established rubric, or is it, because that hasn't been shared, and again, is it subjective or objective, or how do we make sure that we get the funding? I know it's competitive,
Yes.
but again, different agencies, different size agencies can compete differently than the city of Gardena and other smaller cities, as an example. So how do we ensure that it's equitably used across the whole board versus those that have staff that understand the language and the lingo to apply for that grant funding, or that funding rather?
Yes, so there is in the case of all the programs that are already existing, there are established rubrics. You could go on their website, you could see all the requirements that are in place for who qualifies and, you know, who, like which projects are selected over others. You could look at historically which projects have been awarded in the past, and things of that nature.
It also, last question, Madam Chair, in regards to the affordability, because or workforce housing, I like that term better. In regards to the provision of workforce housing, because let's say for an example, there's a 20 number units, but only 2 of those are made available for workforce housing. Is this supposed to then now, let's say for a project like that, make it 50-50 workforce housing and market rate housing, or just some workforce housing and it goes back to what it is now?
So within each program, there are requirements if you want to apply for it, as to how many workforce housing units would have to be. So for example, for the multifamily housing program, which provides low interest, long-term deferred payment loans for new construction, rehabilitation, and preservation of permanent and transitional rental housing for lower income households. If you decide to use that program, there's a prescriptive number of workforce housing units that you would have to have that would be above and beyond, let's say, as per your example, like 2 units is how it ends up working out. So if it's a multifamily housing program project for seniors, every single unit would have to be for seniors within that, since they're using this specified funding. And also, there's also the programs such as the Infill Infrastructure Grant Program. And what that one does that SCAG has historically supported is it makes it so that applicants can use it to take care of some of that infrastructure needs to prepare the project site, so that hopefully then lowers the cost of the project overall to allow the developer to include more affordable housing units. So I think it does things of that nature to address your concern.
All right, thank you for your response.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Francisco. All right, I'll go to Jan Harnick, then Thomas Wong, then Sue Lisaro.
Okay, good morning, and Francisco, thank you for all that information. And my comments kind of are right with what Mark was saying on that one bill. And these are all bills that we're all looking at and saying, great, this will help us with these issues we're dealing with housing. I have a couple concerns. We know we've talked about the billions of dollars that have been spent on housing, and we see what the result is. So what concerns me is there a quarterback on this bond who's going to help ensure that these funds are used well and in a complementary fashion throughout the state, so that we achieve what this bond, I believe, is intended to achieve. And I think we also support the concept behind the bond. So I want to make sure that we have somebody, they're just not throwing money out there. They're throwing money in a coordinated and effective fashion that's going to result in the housing we all know we need, that will encourage developers and development and get us where we need to go. That's one. The other thing is, and I see it, the $500 million for acquisition and rehabilitation of unrestricted housing units. Essentially, we will be turning those into restricted housing units the way I'm reading it. Is that accurate? So that's just kind of touching the surface, I know. And I believe that we can get a bond across the finish line, because when people don't mind paying taxes if they know they're used well. So how do we ensure that there will be the quarterbacking that will make people feel comfortable that these funds are used in the most productive and efficient manner? Is that in the bill? And that's what I got.
So I think
Francisco?
yes, I believe
Can you
the
answer
bill,
that?
of course, I will try my best. I believe that the bond bill as it's written now, and since as it's putting the funding into existing pots, we can kind of track how that funding's been spent historically and see the success of those programs. So I think that's that's how they're trying to do it instead of, trying to create like a million new programs through this funding. They're saying we already have these tools. Let's just fund these tools, especially since, as I mentioned in my talking points, a lot of the funding has historically for these types of programs has come from GEO funding or the general general obligation bonds or the general fund. I don't see any coming from the general fund, and the general obligation bonds are expiring that feed these programs. So it's really about a continuation of that. As far as the specific acquisition and rehabilitation of unrestricted housing units, so this has been a program that they tried to administer in the past. What they tried to do is create a program through HCD where the eligible borrowers who were an entity whose primary mission includes the development or ownership of housing that is affordable to low-income households that has demonstrated experience in acquiring rehabilitation and operating multifamily housing for the benefit of low-income households, such as a nonprofit, a community land trust, or a local public entity. So yes, essentially it would take currently unrestricted housing and make it restricted, but it wouldn't be the state doing that. It would be, let's say, a nonprofit entity who sees a building that is older, needs a lot of upgrades, so that they would go in, fix that building up, and then not kick the current tenants out, and then it would become restricted housing.
Okay, and thank you. And I heard you talk about the infill infrastructure, and that's so important to so much that we're doing, and we certainly want that funded. I think it is so critically important that we are able to assure the people who are saying yes to a bond, that bond will be used in a way that's going to make, quite frankly, make us all feel good. And, we see the housing, we see the people who are served by that housing. So that's my concern. I am not an anti or pro bond. I am a pro good results. So I just want to make sure that we are able to communicate this well and feel confident in what we're communicating.
If I can just kind of speak to that for a moment, Jan, when the big city mayors met with Assemblymember Wicks, we emphasized the need for accountability with this bond and how we could make sure that it was being effective. And I'm not sure what number of details went into it from that conversation, but we had the same concerns. So I just want to let you know others out there are saying the same thing. So thanks.
So thank you very much for that. So is there a way we can put that on their radar, that they understand how critically important it is, and that our support of it is really contingent upon us being able to have effective and strategic communication that we can feel confident in?
I'm going to ask Francisco to follow up
Certainly.
with staff, with
Yes.
staff on that.
Absolutely. If that's, you've communicated that, we can certainly include those concerns and in the letter and any communications we have with the member moving forward, and any posts or publication that we do as an agency to say we support the bond, and we just want to make sure that there are barriers in place to make sure that the funding goes to where it's supposed to be going.
Thank you, Francisco. Thank you, Patricia.
Yep, you bet. I have Thomas Wong, then Suli Saro. Thomas?
Thank you, Chair. Just to dovetail a little bit off what Jan was saying, in terms of accountability measures, right, we all want to see results. If we're borrowing $10 billion and paying interest on that, and I would just echo kind of that sentiment and see how we can do that. I think part of that accountability is also, if there are bills in the legislature, we need to figure out how we can do this to address the cost of building housing in California as well, to the LA City Measure HHH, $1 billion bond or whatever. Not the rising cost of building housing in the city of LA is going to result in a lot fewer units than what was promised. But that bond, even $10 billion at the statewide level, it's not going to build a whole lot of units. I mean, it's a big chunk of money, but it's not going to build a lot. And so the other point I think I'm trying to make is, one, broadly support the bond. I think need financing. All the cities need a source of permanent financing, really, but any source of money to help offset costs and subsidize construction of housing in our cities will be helpful. I'm curious, Francisco or others, what the sentiment is, given the governor's May revise about to drop. Likely deficit going to be showing in the 10 to $20 billion range. What the feeling is in Sacramento on a bond of this size, even and any conversation around whether that might change or not, or how things are going up there in terms of what borrowing like this might look like.
Absolutely. As I said, as you said, now this housing was not significantly included in the January budget, and that's when we were expecting a surplus of 300 million. Now that we're expecting a deficit up to, I've heard as high as like 30 billion, I don't see an appetite for its inclusion. So if anything, I see an increased amount of support for a bond effort to see the continuation of these programs.
Thank you. All right, Suli Sorrow.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everybody. I do appreciate thank you for the presentation. I generally broadly support these 5 bills and appreciate the questions and the concern about the Affordable Housing Bond Act of 2026. I think that, as a reminder, our role is to vet through these bills and ask these questions and express these concerns. But at the end, it's going to be voters that's going to decide on this. And I think that given all of the conversation that's brought up, I hope that through the election process, the voters will also be asking these questions because they're the one that's ultimately going to make the decision. But I think given that we are just, as it was said, going into a $30 potential billion deficit, just looming lack of support for affordable housing. I think this is going to be really important to keep the momentum on increasing housing stock and availability in the state. But I think just to make sure that we're clear on the impact if this doesn't move forward for voters, can you share a little bit about what it would mean if this bond wasn't going to go to voter, and assuming that it would pass, how many, if you could just share that.
Sorry,
Francisco, you gonna take that one?
I was trying to find my unmute button. I'm sorry. It's only been 4 years since the pandemic. So are you asking essentially like about how many homes we're expecting to be constructed as a result of this?
Yeah, just in terms of the impact and how that would exacerbate homelessness, right? Because, this bond is meant to help ensure that housing continues to be built affordable beyond 2025. And I think it's important while everyone does feel that there's always need for resources and funding. I just want to make sure we're clear on, well, what wouldn't happen, what would be the impact, right, if this bond didn't go before a voter and get passed?
Can I jump in, Francisco?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
I think the answer is that it's going to be status quo, which is why we have a whole bunch of other bills that are trying to expedite things like Wieners, like the other companion bill that Buffy put in there about, the infill housing. So as a somewhat of a backstop, right? Otherwise, it's going to continue to be in the trend that it has been. So I think that's why this is so critical.
Yeah. So thank you for stating that, Madam Chair. I just wanted to make sure that that's why it's brought before us, and that's why I'm supportive. And I think that it helps us keep our momentum moving forward and continuing to address the challenges that we are facing, as mentioned, around the rising cost to build housing, the increased need for housing demand. So thank you very much.
Thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that. All right, I'm going to let Jenny go, and then we're going to take a vote on these ones because we have a lot to talk about today in the next 50 minutes or so. And so I want to make sure we get back to our agenda. So Jenny.
So first, just a response to that question. According to the staff report, it says that the bond aims to build 3,500 new homes and preserve and rehabilitate tens of thousands of existing units. So I think that goes to the question of, like, if it weren't to pass, those are maybe potentially less likely to be built if the funding wasn't available. But my question was more out of curiosity on the program that was taken out of the bond, the energy efficiency low income weatherization program, do we know if the state is planning to fund that somewhere else? Or are they planning to sunset that program? Or like, do we know what the fate of that program is? Like, was this just supplemental money? Or do we know what happens with that program if it's not in this bond?
I think I know that the discussion around that from the legislature in terms of priorities was that they've already this year they've expended so many funds from the general fund to help in those efforts. That's why this specific item was negotiated out of the budget. As to what's going to happen to that program without those funds, I'm not exactly sure. I know Nick Romo, our lobbyist, is on the call. If he has an answer to those conversations.
Yeah, there's two items. Good question. Nick Romer with Crew Strategies. One is there's been discussions about putting more funding for this program in the cap and trade spending plan that will be discussed throughout this summer, and of course with extension talks. And then secondly, I know Insurance Commissioner Lara is also working on a much bigger strategy around investing in weatherization programs. So I think the idea here was let's focus this bond on the sort of more affordable and infrastructure needs. So
No, and I'm fine. It doesn't necessarily fit in this bond, but it just brought up the question for me of like, just if we could keep an eye on if that's getting funded somewhere else. Because I used to be on a board that helped implement one of those programs, and so I saw the impact that it had on some of the members of our communities. So I just wanted to know whether or not that was going to go away. So thank you.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. We'll keep a close eye on it.
All right, thanks. I would like to take a vote on these just to make sure we're okay, and then we move on. So would somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to move staff's recommendations on these bills.
Wong will second.
All right, thank you. Motion is second, Buckingham Wong. All right, can we have a vote, please?
Cindy Allen,
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam,
Aye.
Ulysses Cabrera,
Aye.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay, Kurt Hagman,
Eggman,
Kurt-
aye, sorry. Couldn't get a mute.
Thank you, noted. Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Mark Henderson,
No.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Fred Jung,
Fred Jung, no.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Gail Rebelar,
Yes.
thank you, Suli Tharo,
Aye.
David Shapiro,
Yes.
Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Thomas Wong.
Yes.
Madam Chair, with 14 yes votes, 2 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the item, the motion on item number 3.
Perfect. Okay, thanks. I just wanted to make sure we got that out of the way. So, okay, we still got lots to cover in the agenda. So I think I'm going to turn it back over to Francisco to continue.
Yes, thank you. And next, I'm handing it over to David, who will be discussing AB 650 real quick.
Okay, thanks.
Yes, just gonna wait a second. Can we get the slides back up, please? Thank you. Oh, can we go back to the previous slide deck that Francisco was presenting?
There we go. Thanks.
Perfect. So next up, I'll be going over AB 650, which was authored by Assemblymember Diane Pappen from San Mateo and sponsored by the California League of Cities. This bill would shift various timelines in the regional housing needs determination, allocation, and housing element revision processes to be due earlier. It would also require the Department of Housing and Community Development, or HCD, to provide specific analysis or text to local governments outlining how they can remedy any deficiencies that HCD has identified in their housing element revisions. More specifically, AB 650 would require HCD to provide each region's regional housing needs determination, which is the overall number of existing and projected housing need for the entire region 3 years before the housing element revision due date, instead of the current deadline of 2 years prior to that due date. Further, this bill would also require HCD to meet and consult with the COG regarding the assumptions and methodology that HCD will use to calculate the COG's determination at least 30 months prior to the housing element revision due date, rather than the current deadline of 26 months prior. Next, this bill would also shift deadlines for various milestones, which I'll list out 6 months earlier relative to the housing element revision due date, which includes the deadlines for a COG to develop and propose a methodology for distributing the RENA to local jurisdictions, for a COG to distribute a draft RENA and publish it on their website, for 2 or more jurisdictions to form a sub-regional entity to allocate its RENA amongst its members, and for a COG to determine each sub-region's RENA. And lastly, this bill also adds a deadline to an existing law requirement for HCD to develop a standardized reporting format for programs and actions that have been taken to affirmatively further fair housing via the housing element. The League sponsored this bill essentially to give local governments an additional 6 months to begin updating their housing elements, and also to help streamline the back and forth with HCD once a jurisdiction has submitted its housing element revision, requiring them to give clear guidance on how a jurisdiction can make its housing element compliant. And overall, this bill will help provide greater clarity and certainty to the housing element process, helping local governments adopt certified housing elements on time. AB 650 passed in the Assembly Local Government and Housing Committees unanimously, and it was amended to align with other bills that are also making changes to these deadlines. And notably, it no longer contains a provision that would have exempted a local government from the builder's remedy during the period after it has submitted and while HCD is reviewing a housing element, and for 90 days after HCD notifies a local government of deficiencies in their housing element. At least 31 SCAG region cities have registered support for AB 650, including the cities of Chino Hills, Fullerton, Long Beach, and Palm Desert. I'll now hand it back to Francisco.
Great, thank you. Can you go to the next slide? Thank you. Next, we have SB 681 by Senator Wahab, which among many changes seeks to, 1, require data assumptions COGS have to provide HCD to include assumptions on overcrowding and cost burden, and 2, require COGS to develop a revised RENA distribution methodology with HCD if the 5 objectives are not met. So focusing specifically on the latter for our purposes, under current practice, councils to governments, including SCAG, have to draft their allocation methodology and share it with HCD, at which point HCD provides us with feedback before we adopt our methodology. This bill would amend that process to mandate that if HCD determines one of the 5 objectives noted in the report are not met, HCD would have 45 days to draft an entirely new RENA distribution methodology, completely bypassing the entire comprehensive public outreach process that SCAG used to develop the RENA distribution methodology in the first place. This, of course, is contrary to our state legislative platform support for legislation that increases coordination and flexibility between HCD and local jurisdictions, particularly for the development and implementation of local housing elements. And for this reason, staff is recommending an opposed position on this specific bill. And then next slide, please. And then for the next two bills, staff is recommending watch, and we really did just want to get some general feedback from you guys and put it on your radar to see if you had any feelings about them one way or the other, so that as we could continue working, we could work with the authors on them as they continue to develop, or just put them on your purview as they move forward. So AB 1244 by Assemblymember Wicks, which is a TOD implementation program. This seeks to expand options to meet vehicle miles traveled mitigation requirements by creating a statewide VMT mitigation fund through the existing transit-oriented development implementation fund under HCD. So as noted in the report, under existing law, developers are required to mitigate for VMT produced by their projects through an existing array of options, including using the fees toward GHG reduction activities such as purchasing bus and transit passes, building bicycle pedestrian infrastructure, etc. So to do so, it would direct the Office of Land Use and Climate Innovation to determine a price for VMT. Funds would be contributed to the existing TOD implementation fund to fund local infill housing development within the same region as the project. So under the idea from this is if a city decides to use this option, they would send their funds up to HCD, and then after a while they could get those funds back to build infrastructure housing, and that would qualify for, as VMT mitigation. And then next slide. And then lastly, AB 1275 by Assemblymember Elawari. This one we just wanted to bring to everyone's attention. As many of you recall, last year, Abundant Housing LA sponsored AB 1335, which in its final iteration would have required the Sustainable Community Strategy, which is tied to our regional transportation plan, to assume all of the region's final determination would be built within the 8-year cycle. As this is not feasible, it would have quickly placed our entire region into nonconformity, meaning we would not be eligible for federal transportation funding dollars. As the bill failed to make it out of the legislature, the bill sponsors have found a new author and have brought the bill back this year. To their credit, they have been working with our housing staff as well as the California Association of CalCog. Through these conversations, the bill has been amended to its current form, which would make HCD provide each region's RENA determination 1 year earlier than they do now, which is one of SCAG's board's approved recommendations that we made to HCD on changing the RENA process. Additionally, by providing us our determination a year in advance, it would better align the timing of the development of the sustainable community strategy in the RENA, which is why the bill also would require that the RENA be informed by the development patterns included in the SCS. In other words, they're just asking us to consider the RENA and the SCS as we develop both, which would be possible now that the timing would line up better. So as noted in the report, staff does appreciate the collaborative nature the bill sponsor and author have taken in working with us on the bill this year, which is why we recommend a watch position. Our planning staff says are fine with the bill as it is now, but it could change. And if it does, we will definitely be bringing it back to the committee. And that concludes our housing bills. And David and I would love to take any questions you all have on any of these bills.
Thanks, Francisco. And the reason I wanted to just take the vote first was those other ones were all support, a staff recommendation of support. This is a bit of a mixed bag. So let me see if anybody has any questions about any of them. Otherwise, we can move to a vote to support staff's recommendation on all of these. Wendy Bucknam.
Sorry, you probably figured I would do that.
No, well, I love your questions,
okay.
Wendy. Go.
Okay. All right. Just on SB 681, are any other MPOs are we in communication with them, and can we do potentially a joint letter?
Yes, we are definitely in communication with them. CalCog just sent an email a few weeks ago asking what our feelings were on the bill. But we are a public agency, and of course we have to go
You can't
through
have
our
feelings.
processes. We cannot have feelings. No, you have the feelings, and we communicate those feelings. So we're all going through the process of bringing these to our various committees. So it'll be a much more concerted effort once we've gone through the process of getting the feedback and the positions from our boards.
Okay, and thank you for that. And then on AB 1244, I do definitely support the watch on this, and And what I'm thinking is, I'd like to stay in touch with our county transportation commissions, also, for all the counties, and see what the thoughts are on this. And then wondering who would be what is the definition of a regional transportation agency? Does that include SCAG, or does this? I'm just trying to figure out what that means, and I think there's probably a little bit more that we could bring back on this by watching it.
Yes.
I'll send you my full comments on it. That it's really just kind of curious things about this one. And then on AB 1275.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yes.
Did you want to say something?
No, I was saying great.
Okay.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Okay. All right. On this one, this, and I definitely agree with getting a watch position on this one, and I appreciate the analysis on this. I feel like I would really appreciate if our RENA housing staff could continue watching this and really provide us with a detailed understanding of what this bill means, and as it applies to our city and county and our RENA numbers and SCS. That, I guess that's the best thing I can say. It seems like this one could it could get very muddy.
Yes, I
So
agree
those
with
are my
you.
comments. Sorry.
It is very technical. Even the author's office is like, wow, this is in the weeds. So
Yeah. So I'm not going to go down into the weeds further than that. So thank you.
But I will say this, Wendy, on your just real quick, you probably know there was some drama in the committee hearing on SB 681 Wahab, so it was entertaining, if nothing else. So okay.
Okay.
Yeah. David Shapiro and then Jenny Crosswhite.
Thank you. I'm not going to take too long because those were excellent comments. My only added point would be on 1244. I am in concept, just like 75. It sounds great. It seems great. Depending upon who's administering, which we know, and how the funds would be distributed and how they'd be used. That's the thing that probably, if we're going to be involved in, especially 1244, that I'd like to see us get a little more in the weeds or detailed with controlling where and how those funds are used and distributed. Because if they just get sent up to Sacramento to a certain agency, I don't know that we all have faith that those funds will be used to reduce VMT miles, which is, I think, our goal as a group. So thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Jenny.
I'll just keep it brief because I think we all agree on watch for especially the last two. But for 1244, it's one of those, there's a lot of, I think it's a good idea, and I think there's a lot of things that could go wrong with it. So it's definitely a watch, see how it develops, and maybe at some point have some, if it looks like it's going to keep moving, have some more in-depth conversation. Because it could turn out that you're having mitigation money that's going into a pot that's then not actually mitigating what it's supposed to be mitigating. So anyway, we can continue to talk about it as we go forward, but yeah.
Is that a motion, Ms. Crosswhite?
Sure, I would move staff recommendation.
Okay.
I'll second.
All right. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Cindy Allen,
Aye.
Wendy Bucknam,
Aye.
Ulysses Cabrera,
Aye.
Jenny Crosswhite,
Yes.
Margaret Finlay, Kurt Hagman,
Agman, aye.
Jan Harnick,
Yes.
Mark Henderson,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
Yes.
Fred Jung.
Fred Jung, aye.
Thank you. Patricia Lock Dawson,
Aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Suli Sorrow,
Aye.
Thank you. David Shapiro,
Yes.
Alan Wapner,
Yes.
Thomas Wong.
Yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With 15 yes votes, 0 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved staff recommendation.
Perfect. And then this goes on to be heard at the regional council meeting on the 5th, correct? June 5th?
Correct, yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, let's move on our agenda to our very favorite topic of them all, and that is AB 98. So I think David's going to lead us in this one. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, let's let me see. I need to open public comment for this item.
Madam
And
Chair.
ask, yeah, Emma, please.
Yes, sorry. Madam Chair, I do not see any raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Great, thank you. We'll close public comment. And then David, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So last year, as I'm sure many of you are aware, SCAG opposed AB 98, which was a last-minute bill that imposed new requirements on warehouse development approvals and imposed additional requirements on local governments. So Agenda Item 4 includes two identical bills, AB 735 and SB 415, which serve as the vehicles for revising AB 98. And so staff recommends that the LCMC forward a watch position to the Regional Council as these bills are still being fleshed out, but I wanted to provide a summary of all the changes that are currently proposed by this set of bills. But just as a quick refresher, I wanted to give a high-level overview of AB 98. So AB 98 was passed in the legislature last year in the closing days of the legislative session after the original bill, which had nothing to do with warehouses, was gut and amended. AB 98 established minimum standards for 21st century warehouses, which a proposed logistics use development or expansion must meet before a local agency may approve it. These requirements include minimum setbacks from sensitive receptors, buffer zones, site design standards, building electrification, and operational standards, and are intended to reduce GHG emissions and mitigate their effects on nearby sites. AB 98 also required jurisdictions to update their circulation elements by January 2028 or by January 2026 for certain SCAG jurisdictions within the Warehouse Concentration Region or WCR. It also authorized the Attorney General to fine jurisdictions that don't update their circulation elements by their deadline. You may recall that SCAG opposed AB 98 last year and sent a letter to the governor requesting that he veto it. However, he still signed it into law on September 29, 2024, and it took effect on January 1st, 2025. So coming back to the present day, AB 735, authored by Assemblymember Juan Carrillo from Palmdale, and SB 415, authored by Senator Eloise Gomez Reyes from San Bernardino, are identical bills that both authors have introduced to clarify and modify various provisions implemented by AB 98. While they're two separate bills, both members are committed to a joint process on these bills since they jointly offered AB 98 in the Assembly last year to gather feedback on how to clean up AB 98 and move them through the legislature together. While these bills make numerous technical and other policy changes and clarifications to AB 98, today I wanted to focus on the most relevant and impactful changes. And first and foremost, these bills would extend the deadline for jurisdictions outside of the warehouse concentration region to update their circulation elements for cities and counties with populations below 50,000 and 100,000 respectively to January 1st, 2035. However, jurisdictions with populations above those thresholds would be subject to the current January 2028 deadline. Most importantly for our region, though, the deadlines for jurisdictions within the WCR remains unchanged, as circulation element updates are still due in approximately 6 months on January 1st, 2026. And as a refresher, the WCR includes the following jurisdictions: unincorporated Riverside and San Bernardino counties, as well as the cities of Chino, Colton, Fontana, Jurupa Valley, Moreno Valley, Ontario, Paris, Rancho Cucamonga, Redlands, Rialto, Riverside, and San Bernardino. And next, as I mentioned, AB 98 authorized the Attorney General to fine jurisdictions $50,000 every 6 months if they have not updated their circulation elements by their deadline. These bills would modify that provision to authorize the AG to find jurisdictions only if the AG determines that the jurisdiction hasn't made a good faith effort to meet the deadline. Other significant provisions include narrowing the definition of logistics use to ensure that AB 98's provisions only apply to warehouses, as some stakeholders thought that the old definition could unintentionally apply to other types of projects. These bills would also clarify that a warehouse development would be subject to the most current building energy efficiency standards in effect at the time that a building permit is issued, providing some stability for developers. Lastly, these bills would clarify that AB 98 exemptions for warehouse developments entitled before September 2024 are only applicable if construction begins within 5 years of the entitlement date. If a project takes longer than 5 years to begin construction, it would no longer be exempt. While both bills passed unanimously in their respective chambers' local government committee, they still remain a work in progress. Several organizations, including business groups, cities, counties, environmental groups, as well as the California Building Properties Association and Cal Cities, have expressed the need and recommended additional amendments. Specifically, Cal Cities has proposed removing the circulation element update requirement if a local government has no proposed new or expanded logistics use developments within its jurisdictions, and allowing jurisdictions to meet the truck routing requirements through ordinances or local transportation plans, rather than relying solely on the circulation element updates. Other local jurisdictions have requested additional clarification on circulation element updates, truck routing, and other flexibilities. And on the other hand, some environmental advocates have raised concerns and called for stronger standards, including eliminating if feasible language, tightening the zoning requirements, and restricting truck access via local roads. Legislators understand and have expressed that they're aware that these bills are still not in their final form, and have expressed a desire to continue stakeholder dialogue to ensure that they can strike a balance between all sides. Ultimately, while these bills are headed in the right direction, since negotiations are still ongoing, staff recommends that the agency adopt a watch position as they progress and requests any feedback that members might have. That concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. Let me see. I see Alan Wapner has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You know, as we all realize, AB 98 was part of the worst piece of legislation in the reviews, and certainly there was no transparency attached to it. It's resulting in the loss of development. It's losing tens of thousands of jobs. And I think from a policy level, the fact that it only applies to San Bernardino and Riverside County showed that the author did not have support statewide to pass this. I don't want San Bernardino County to make any indication that it supports any part of 98. The cleanup language, as far as I'm concerned, really doesn't do anything to rectify the situation caused by Prop 98. So, and I would appreciate the committee, you know, it only impacts San Bernardino and Riverside counties to, you know, give me the courtesy and indulgence on behalf of San Bernardino County to oppose this or anything connected to Prop 98.
So you're asking Alan to take a opposed position? Okay. So is that a motion?
I'll make a motion that we oppose.
Bucknam, second.
We have a motion and a second to oppose both bills, I'm assuming, because there's two of them. Is that
Yes.
correct?
Yes, the motion.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion on those? Okay, let's go ahead and take a vote on that then.
Cindy Allen,
I'm gonna say no.
thank you. Wendy Bucknam,
Yes.
Ulysses Cabrera,
Yes.
Jenny Crosswhite,
No.
Kurt Hagman.
Hagman.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Hagman, aye.
Thank you.
Yes.
Jan Harnick,
Can you be clear, are we voting to oppose or are we voting to support or to support the watch as recommended by the staff?
I think it was to oppose both pieces of legislation.
Okay.
And so just to make sure too, can I just clarify? So what I'm voting is to continue to watch. So that would be a no vote for me.
Yes,
Okay.
that's what I'm understanding as well. But if the author has something else or the recommender has something else, I would defer to him. But I think that's what I heard was to oppose both pieces of legislation. So that would be the yes vote. The no vote would be to continue to watch.
Okay, so I will vote no.
You'll vote no. Okay, thank you.
Mark Henderson,
Yes.
Laura Hernandez,
No.
Fred Jung,
Fred Jung, aye.
Patricia Lock Dawson,
I'm going to go with aye.
Ray Marquez,
Yes.
Suli Sorrow,
No.
David Shapiro, I'm sorry, Mr. Shapiro, can you repeat that?
Yes, it was a yes.
Thank you.
To abstain, to watch, pardon me, that's a no. Let me rephrase my vote. To watch, I
Mr.
agree with the
Shapiro.
comments, but at this point, watch.
Noted, thank
Thanks.
you. Alan Wapner,
Yes.
thank you. Thomas Wong,
No.
thank you. Madam Chair, with 8 yes votes, 7 no votes, and 0 abstentions, the committee has approved the motion to oppose the 2 pieces of legislature for item number 4.
All right, thank you. I think what's difficult about this one too is if no cleanup language is, satisfactory or it doesn't address what the issues were in Riverside County and in the city of Riverside, it will hurt us immensely because of the stringent requirements on our transportation planning effort. If that doesn't get rectified and the cleanup language doesn't pass, but it doesn't, then the bill stands as is. So we're in a bit of a conundrum here, but I think I appreciate everybody's comments on this one. All right, we are moving on our agenda now. This is information items. So we are at our state budget update. All right, we're going to open public comment on our state budget update.
Madam Chair, I do not see any raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
Thank you, Emma. All right, I'm going to turn it over, I think, Francisco, to introduce the item.
Yes, thank you. So, I'm not sure if you all saw it, but the governor has officially announced that he is releasing his May revise tomorrow morning at approximately 10:30 a.m. So he'll be holding a press conference then. We will be monitoring this closely and we'll be sure to send a detailed summary of impacts to the legislative committee after its release. Ahead of that, we do have our lobbyist, Nick Roma with Crew Strategies, present to provide a quick overview of what we might expect in conversations that are happening right now.
Thank you, Francisco. And we have Mark McDonald to kick it off for us.
Hi, everyone. Mark McDonald, MGI Advocacy, part of your Cruise Strategies team. So as Francisco indicated, the May revision will be released tomorrow morning around 10:30. The governor will be in Sacramento to do his press conference, and then it'll be released shortly after that. If you'll recall, with the January budget that was released January 10th, there was a slight surplus in the state's budget. And even with that, the governor had proposed cuts in January. Earlier this week, the LAO, the Legislative Analyst's Office, released their updated revenue projections. And what they found is in the current year, that's the 24-25 fiscal year, revenues are actually above where the governor had projected them in January, and that is without still the tax returns from LA County that were impacted by the fire. However, revenue projections for the budget year, that's the 25-26 budget year, that the budget will be built on for next year are down significantly and weakening significantly. So the legislature and the state will be looking at cuts, looking to prioritize programs. And I know that Nick and our team have been in with a number of staff and members in the last couple weeks, looking to what to anticipate. So I'll kick it to Nick to give a little bit more detail on what we're expecting.
Thanks, Mark. Thanks, Chair. And I'll be brief. I just wanted to put a couple of things on people's minds while watching for tomorrow. Some priorities for state budget leaders. One being the cuts to higher education. There's about $800 million that were proposed to be cut in the governor's January budget. This is for the CSU and UC system. These are like direct base cuts. So we've heard directly from the budget leaders that this is a top priority for them. I think 1A, that's 1A. 1B will be the HHAP program, which is the homelessness funding, about $1 billion that is needed to be on the table to continue the HHAP program. Some of that funding flows directly to our big cities and big counties and also to our COCs. That money, as Mark mentioned, was not in the January budget, but it certainly is top of the list for the legislature. So we're watching for what potentially may be cut or delayed, but also what's not in the governor's May revise that will have essentially set up the next 6 weeks of pretty intense negotiations for all three parties. So we'll leave it at that. Tomorrow we'll be providing you a quick update on what we see. We're obviously going to go directly to the transportation budget, the climate budget, the housing budget first to really look at if there's any cuts or delays to core programs that impact SCAG and SCAG membership. So we're on high alert and we'll be ready to activate as needed. Back to you, Chair.
All right. Thank you, Nick. Anybody have any comments or questions for either of our budget experts here? I don't see any, so thanks both. Looking forward to that release. Okay, let's see. We're moving on to our Policy and Public Affairs Division update. I don't think Javier is on today. I think we're going to get Kevin Gilhooly. Lucky us. Kevin.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of the committee. I'm happy to provide a quick division update for Javiera this morning, who's enjoying some well-deserved R&R this week. So first of all, welcome back. To echo your comments, Madam Chair, I'd like to congratulate everyone on the committee for their appointments or reappointments to the Legislative Communications and Membership Committee. I may be biased, but the LCMC is by far the most fun of SCAG's many committees. Under the leadership of President Allen and Chair Locke Dawson, and using the adopted state and federal legislative platforms as our guides, the Legislative Affairs team is anxious and excited to bring to you monthly meetings that evaluate pending policy proposals in Sacramento and Washington, D.C., that features special guest speakers such as members of Congress or opinion makers in Sacramento. And of course, we're excited to bring to you our annual Sacramento Summit and other advocacy opportunities. For the remainder of the year, you can expect to hear a lot more about advocating for SCAG's priorities as the legislature and the governor negotiate a final budget for fiscal year 2026. You can hear more about SB 375 reform. That's the legislation that requires regional agencies like SCAG to create a sustainable community strategy and achieve greenhouse gas reduction targets. You can expect to hear more about securing an extension for the deadline by which all of our REAP 2.0 dollars are spent, which is needed because those funds were put on hold during last year's budget process. And certainly you can expect to hear a lot more about the reauthorization of our nation's surface transportation policy, which authorizes our mass transit, highway, and freight-related transportation programs out of Washington, D.C., among many, many other ideas and bills and concepts. Moving on to my next item, Latina Action Day. Last week, President Cindy Allen and Regional Councilmember Laura Hernandez and SCAG staff attended the 31st Annual Latina Action Day in Sacramento sponsored by the Hispanas Organized for Political Equality, also known as HOPE. The one-day conference included a series of panels focusing on education, healthcare, economic empowerment, and civic engagement. Among the keynote speakers were SCAG friends and alumni, Assembly members Juan Carrillo from Palmdale and Celeste Rodriguez from San Fernando. The event also afforded SCAG the opportunity to network with Senate Majority Leader Lena Gonzalez from Long Beach and Assembly member Sadeh Elawari from South LA, and many legislative staff. From a department manager perspective, I will say I especially loved the opportunity to see how another reputable organization conducts its advocacy day so that SCAG can learn from the experiences of others. Next, Madam Chair, I'll turn it over to my colleague Anna Valianatos, who is going to provide us with a recap from the General Assembly.
Thank you, Kevin, and members of the committee. My name is Anna Valianatos, and I'm the manager of the Media and Public Affairs Department. I was very happy to see many of you at this year's Regional Conference and General Assembly earlier this month. I hope you all enjoyed the event and found it valuable. Currently, the Media and Public Affairs Department is in the process of evaluating the event, and we plan to provide a full evaluation report to you at the next meeting in June. In the meantime, I'm here to provide this update with a few of the metrics that we currently have available as a preview of what will be coming in that report. So for the event registration, we had 946 people register for the event. This was just short of the goal that we set for ourselves of 950 people. Out of those registered for the event, we confirmed that 864 were in attendance. This is an improvement over past years where we've had a steeper drop-off between registration and attendance. Also notable for this year's General Assembly, we surpassed our sponsorship goal. The host committee had set a sponsorship goal of $360,000, and we were able to raise $435,000. And I wanted to especially congratulate Regional Council Vice President Ray Marquez, who was the chair of our General Assembly Host Committee, on this amazing accomplishment. That concludes my remarks, and I look forward to sharing more evaluation with you at the next meeting.
Thank you. Anything else, Kevin?
And that concludes our division update, Madam Chair. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay. Well, you know what I didn't do was open public comment for your portion. So let me ask if I will open public comment for that update and future agenda items and announcements. And I will ask Emma if we have any public comments.
Madam Chair, we do not have any raised hands via Zoom and no members of the public in person.
All right, we'll close public comment for that item. Now we are all squared away. All right. Anybody have any future agenda items they would like to see come up? I don't see anybody. Wait, yes, Thomas Wong.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to kind of follow up on the AB 98 cleanup conversation, I think it's those negotiations on potential cleanup. I know we just recommended a position for regional council, but if those negotiations come back, maybe staff can continue to watch and engage in those negotiations. And if a bill or bills come back out of the legislature and out of committees that make sense for the LCMC to take up again, maybe that's something we can put on our agenda, or at least direct staff to keep a watch out for. I think we do need to clean up for AB.
Okay, but
Yeah,
can I just ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
So just to be clear, if we vote not to watch, then are we asking staff then to continue to watch? I'm just confused.
I think what we did was voted no on the two pieces of legislation that are addressing AB 98. So let me ask Francisco if that still allows you to negotiate with the authors.
Absolutely. So we took the recommended position is an opposed position.
Whoops, you're cutting out there, Francisco. Can you?
I'm happy to jump in here, Madam Chair,
Okay.
if my connection is still working.
All right.
So what happened today was the committee voted 8-7 to oppose both of those bills that are under negotiation right now with concerning AB 98. So during the process, the recommended position from the Ledge Committee will go to our June Regional Council meeting. In the meantime, we will continue to engage with the leads on the negotiation, which happened to be the California Business Properties Association, as I understand it, some of our friends from the League of Cities and some of the other impacted stakeholders, and SCAG is working in partnership with them. And so we will continue to provide SCAG perspective and all the feedback that we heard back from today to inform those conversations. We certainly would want to make sure the legislative committee is kept apprised of those negotiations. And if we think that there is an opportunity or whether it makes sense to adjust SCAG's position, we would make that recommendation to you all at a future LCMC meeting as well.
Is that clear, Cindy? You okay with that, Chair Allen? Yeah, or President Allen? I have to get used to calling you President Allen now. You are on mute.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm sorry. Can you say that again?
Sure. So today, what happened with the committee is the committee voted 8-7 to oppose both of those bills that are related to AB 98 cleanup. And so what we'll do is we'll take that recommendation will go from this legislative committee to the full board on the regional council's meeting on Thursday, June 5, where the position will either be sustained or whatever. And so we'll take all of the comments and the feedback that we heard from the conversation today, in addition to that official position that would be adopted on the June 5 meeting, and contribute that in those conversations that are happening on those two pieces of legislation.
Okay.
So SCAG's not the lead on those reform efforts, but we are providing our comments and our feedback because we have a lot of experts in our region whose cities and whose their microeconomies are being affected by those pieces of legislation. So we'll continue to contribute our experience in those in those negotiations.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you. I have to get used to calling you president. Jan Harnick.
It's easy to get used to calling her president, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's good. I just want to echo what was just said. I appreciate that SCAG will still have our voice heard on that issue because it needs to be heard. And hopefully they may shift some things so that by the time we come to regional council, it's a more palatable bill. But in the meantime, we still need to have our voice heard and to really strongly, as Kevin said, voice our experience and how it will impact so many of our municipalities and entities. So thank you.
Thank you. Wendy?
Hi. This is for the good of the order, not related to any topics. Okay, I just want to make sure I'm not stepping in on the wrong thing.
Yeah, no, we were looking at future agenda items and Chair Allen or President Allen was trying to figure out when this was going to go forward.
Thank you. Okay. So future agenda item, and also something that I wanted to just follow up from our meeting with the insurance commissioner. I would like to have some sort of a follow-up on the status of what is being done, any actions that have been taken on the whole insurance crisis situation, potentially at a future meeting if others are agreeable. And then I wanted to also see if I could get some help from SCAG staff because we're really trying to get somebody from the insurance commissioner's office to a town hall that we are having next week. And we've reached out multiple times and maybe I could get just a little bit of help. Is there some sort of a conference that might be going on in Long Beach, I think, that might be creating a conflict, but I wonder if somebody could potentially help me out.
Okay, two things. So we'll put that on a future agenda item and then staff will follow up with you separately, Wendy, on the insurance commissioner, right?
Thank you so much. Or representative. I mean, I know he's very busy.
Yeah. All right. I don't see anybody else with any other suggestions for future agenda items. So that brings us to the end of our meeting, I believe, doesn't it? All right, so we are adjourned. Thank you, fabulous LCMC. We will see you on June 5th. Take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
job.